What's that? What, a full Masechta? The full thing for that 8 grand? It won't be tomorrow. It goes up every time you ask.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Fine. If I don't put it right next to my. All right. We're starting to show a new parak now. I just say I had to speak to Rav today, and he was chuckling. So I said to him, he'll share with me. So he told me this joke, but if he can say it, I can say it. He said there was a Rav, a Chazan, and a Gabber slated for execution. So they said that each one's allowed to have one last wish. So the Rav said, there's one drasha I've never given. I want to say the drasha. The Chazan said, there's one piece of chazonus I never got a chance to say. I want to say the chazonus. The Gabber said, shoot me first. I've heard him speaking in Chaznik for so long, I don't have to go through the... Anyway, on a more serious note, I said yesterday that making ice is wrong. It's forbidden on Shabbos. I'd like to amend that, correct it actually. There are those who say it is wrong. There are those who say it's wrong because of nolad. There are many who are meiko. And Nissim Kaveritz argues for 2 reasons why it's permitted. Says ice is not fundamentally different from water. And he says another interesting logic, that you don't actually make ice. Ice is created by itself by the process of putting it in the freezer. So he says it's okay. There are those who forbid it. Shem Zaman and Shmir Shabbos says one shouldn't. But the nafkamina of it is that if a person does need ice, it's a hot day. And I thank David Fulder for pointing this out, that if it's a hot day, one is allowed. There are those who say one's allowed. Okay. No, I'm saying like this. If to say it's forbidden would mean that you're never allowed to make ice. To say that those who forbid it, those who permit it, if a person is in a situation where there's a lot of people, it's a boiling hot day, and there's no cold drinks in the house, and he needs to cool something down, he should be aware that there are many who are makel, and therefore.
Is it ice pops for kids as well?
Ice pop for the children, yes. If the children are very hot, you can have a very hot day suddenly, and you've got no cold drinks, you can put the ice pops in the freezer. It's rare, freaking, it does happen. We're starting a new parak. For this parak, it's the more a person knows about the kroshim of the Mishkan, the better. The kroshim were beams around the Mishkan. There were 48 kroshim altogether, 20 on each side, on the north and the south, and 8 at the back on the western side. There were 48 kroshim altogether. How high was each keresh? Does anybody know? 10 amas. 10 amas, about 3 meters. More so, about 5 meters. Quite high. And they were 1.5 by 1.5 long, 1 deep, and 10 amas high. Each keresh was not made out of what's called wood dust. What's the word for it? The wood which is put together. Chipwood, that's the word. Not chipwood. It was made out of a proper log of wood. Can you imagine such a thing? A log of wood, 10 amas high, 1.5 amas long, and 1 amas deep. So he talked about a very heavy thing. There were 48 of them. And the Levim had to move them from place to place in the Midbar, and this parak deals a very lot with it. So the Mishnah starts off like this. Mishnah Tzadik Vav Amudalef from new parak. A person who throws something from Shusayach to Shusayach, he's standing in his house and he throws an apple out the window and it lands in the Shusayach. Then he's chayav, because that, even though he's not passing, he's throwing. Throwing is the same as carrying. That is the chiddush of our Mishnah. Throwing is the same as carrying. A person throws from one Shusayach to another, and there's a Shusayach in the middle. As we once explained, a person has 2 houses, one on each side of a Shusayach, assuming, let's say, that very new or the M62 is a Shusayach, and he has a house on each side, and he throws it across from one house to the other. So Rabbi Kiva Mechayev, Rabbi Kiva says he's chayev because at the end of the day he carried from Shusayach to Shusayach. The Chachamim say one is potter because one is not carried from Shusayach to Shusayach, one's carried from Shusayach to Shusayach. Keitzat, shtei gzus tovoi zu keneged zu, 2 balconies opposite each other. Shusayach. Right? Mishnah explains this. 2 balconies across from Shusayach. You've got 1 balcony on one side of Berry New Road and one on the other. How Moshe, somebody who passes over, he's potter. Why? Because according to the Tanakama, the Chomim, you're not done with Shesach Rishus Rabim, right? If you go a balcony from one side to the other side, one is potter. But you stay in B'diyut Achas. If both balconies were on the same road, that means you own two properties on very new road, or you and your neighbor. And
both of these balconies are below 10 tefachim?
No, we don't. That the Gemara discusses how high the balconies are. The balconies do not need to be high or low. The Gemara discusses how high. You've got two balconies, but they're not on the opposite side of the main road, but rather they are along the main road. So you've got very new road, and you've got houses along the road, and there are balconies overlooking the main road, and you're passing something from one balcony, not across the road, but along the road. So then, if you pass from one to the other one is chayav, potter, and if you throw your potter. That's how the Levim worked. They had two wagons, one behind the other. They would pass but not throw. It's important to get a small picture again over here. What happened was like this. You had 48 kroshim. The Levim would then line up at the end of the Mishkan 4 wagons, because Merori, who carried the kroshim, they got from Moshe Rabbeinu Pashas Nosei 4 wagons. They made each of the 2 wagons go one in front of the other on each side of the Mishkan. So if the Mishkan was a bit like a ches, kroshim in the picture of a ches, then you had 2 wagons, one in front of the other, following the Mishkan. And what happened was, there were Levim standing by the side of the wagon, and what they did was, they would take the kroshim from the Levi who would dismantle it from the Mishkan, he would pass it over to the first wagon, then from the first wagon, they would pass it along to the next wagon. They never passed from each wagon across, but only further. Again, you've got the Mishkan, a big ches, right? Loads and loads of kroshim standing in a very big ches. And then you have the 2 wagons after the Mishkan, on both sides, one on the Tzofim side, one on the Doim side. They would then, each Levi would pick up this heavy beam, a few of them together, and load it onto the wagon. Once the wagon was full, they would then load on to the next wagon, which was further forward. But they never passed from one wagon across the desert to the other side, because that would be a waste of energy. So what they did was, therefore, if you work it out, they only had passing from one Rishus HaYachid. The wagons were considered Rishus HaYachid. The desert was considered the Rishus HaRabim. So therefore, when they passed from one wagon to the next, they were going along the Rishus HaRabim from one Rishus HaYachid to the other. They never crossed over the Rishus HaRabim. Therefore, there was a din that to go across the Rishus HaRabim from Rishus HaYachid, that's it, went forward, not sideways. If you want, and Rashi explains this was the best way to load something. If you've ever got a huge amount of heavy wood to schlep, so what's the best way to do it? What you do is like this. You put the wagons as close as possible to the wood, and then you move the wood across onto the wagons, and then on the other wall, again, you do the same thing. But you're not going to move the wood across sideways. That would be a waste of energy. So, sideways across the Rishus HaRabim, you're never chayav according to the Chachamim. Because they never did that. They never carried from one wagon to the other across the Rishus HaRabim. Forwards, you are chayav, but only if you pass. If you throw, you're not chayav. Why not chayav? Because nobody could ever throw a beam. These beams weighed a huge amount, so nobody ever threw them. So that is the only case you can be chayav, is if you pass forward, not sideways, and not throwing. Says the Gemara. We're first going to discuss throwing. Mechti, since throwing is a Toda V'Yitzah, that means V'Yitzah is the Av Malacha, and from that come other malachas like throwing. V'Yitzah Guf Eichik Siva, where's the Torah right, the Issa to take out from one Rishus to another. Moshe made an announcement, we've got enough for the donations from the Mishkan, it's not necessary to give any more. Moshe Eichen Ava Yosef, where would Moshe live? Machne Leviah. Machne Leviah was Rishus HaRabim Avoy, Machne Leviah was Rishus HaRabim. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, after 2 days of donations, there was already enough for the entire Mishkan. So he told people, stop bringing. And where was everybody bringing? From their Rishus HaYachid, from their homes, to the public domain, which was where Moshe Rabbeinu was. So you see that you're not allowed to carry from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim. And that's where we know that the Torah says that Hitzah is awesome. How do you know that Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking on Shabbos? Maybe the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu told them to stop was not because they were carrying from their homes to Rosh Hashanah, but rather, like the Pasuk itself says, that the reason he told them to stop was because they had too much and they didn't need anymore. Like the Pasuk says, that there was enough. And it says, it's a Gzeir Shava. They announced in the camp, don't give any more. You should announce with a shofar it's Yomi. Just like there on Yom Kippur, we're talking about a day which is forbidden to do malacha. Also, over here, it's a day which is forbidden to do malacha. That means, Moshe Rabbeinu told them stop carrying. So you could understand the reason he told them to stop carrying was simply because we had a surplus of donations. More explains, no, the Gzeir Shava tells us that the reason he told it to them was because it was a Shabbos like Yom Kippur, Gzeir Shava, a day which is forbidden. Tesis brings up in the Chananel actually missed out those 3-4 lines of Gemara, and he says we don't care whether it was a Shabbos or weekday. All we need to see that this happened in the Mishkan. We don't need to know that it was happened on the Shabbos. It's a very important message that's in the Chananel. It's the second Tesis. The Tesis says like this, that whenever they did anything in the Mishkan, right, they hunted deers and rams in order to make ram skins. So whenever they did something in the Mishkan, whether it was weekday or Shabbos, we are not allowed to do it on Shabbos. Why is the Gemara question over here, did they do it on Shabbos? Was it a Shabbos that Moshe Rabbeinu forbade it? The Ritva defends this Gemara by saying that there is a necessity to teach us that it was a Shabbos, because since it wasn't actual part of building the Mishkan, it was something done before the Mishkan. If not for the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu forbade them, we would have no right to say that indeed this has anything to do with the Issa of Shabbos. Otherwise, maybe it's just a donation of cause. The fact that it was Shabbos means the question is over here, why is the Gemara need to tell us it's Shabbos? All the other malachas we never discussed that happened on Shabbos. When the Gemara says you're not allowed to bake on Shabbos because it's to bake the Shtei Alechem, the one doesn't ask, how do you know you bake the Shtei Alechem on Shabbos? Okay. It says the Gemara, Ashchan Hoitzah. From there we've learned Hoitzah. Why? Klal Yisrael took from their home the precious gold and silver to donate to the Mishkan. So they took it from a Reshus HaYochid, their private domain, to the public domain, to where Moshe Rabbeinu lived, which is a Machne Leviyah. So we find the Torah discusses Hoitzah, that's Reshus HaYochid to Reshus Rabbeinu. Hachnosa minolo. How do you know that from Reshus Rabbeinu to Reshus HaYochid is forbidden? So it's logical. Mechti Reshus to Reshusu. Since one is taken from one domain to another, Mali Afuke, Mali Yulei. What difference does it make taking out or taking in? Either way, it's forbidden. Says Hoitzah, nevertheless, you should be aware. Hoitzah av, achnosa todo. That Hoitzah, taking out of a house, is av. Bringing into a house is a todo. Says what difference does it make if one's an av and one's a todo? If one takes out of the house to Shusarabim, one's osa, it's a deraisa, chayav chatos. Bring into a house also, what difference does it make if one is an av, one's a todo? So one says, if a person does 2 obos at the same time, this is a very important halach, we had this before. That is like this. We said, for example, watering the garden is a issa of zereh, planting is issa of zereh. Let's a person forgets his Shabbos and he waters his garden and he plants his garden. How many chatoros does he bring? Only 1. Because since both planting and watering is all one malacha, you only have 1. So for the Gemara says like this, that taking out of a house and bringing into the house, if a person does it one forgetfulness, is only chayav 1 chatos. And that's what we mean when we say that's the toda of the av. If a person does 2 different avos, for example, he does cheresh and then zereh, or he does 2 different todas, let's say he does a toda of zereh, for example, he waters, and then he straightens the floor, which is a toda of cheresh, so then he'll be chayav 2. So nafkimina over here, where there's avol toda, is simply the gabe, the issa of how many chatois he has to bring. It says more la blezet, the mechara toda mokim av, a blezet says he have a chatos. Even when you've done a av, a maikol av, a maikol toda. Why do we call it av and a toda? Says more says hachta avoy b'mishkan, that which says explicitly in the Mishkan, like over here, taking from a private domain to a public domain to donate chashiva. Hachta avoy make sure the chashiva which was chashuv koil av. After the Mishkan Chashiva, the one which was never reckoned in the Mishkan, wasn't important, lo koil av. Inami achtach siva, the one which is written clearly in the Torah, koi av. That means, according to Rabbi Lezer, there's absolutely no practical ramifications if something's av or Torah. No nafkaminas whatsoever at all. Because according to Rabbi Lezer, if a person does 2 todas of one av, or one av and one toda, even if it's the same av and the same toda from the same halacha, a person's chayav a chatos for each one. So why do we ever talk about av and toda? Only because what was done in the Mishkan is called av, what wasn't done in the Mishkan was called toda. What's written in the Torah is called av, what's not written in the Torah is called toda, is a toda. Whatever's not written in the Torah is not called the av, it's called the toda. But not because there's any nafkiminas halacha and maisa. Tais asks the kasha because there's one more nafkimina between av and toda, very briefly, is that when a person does hasra, a person has to do the right hasra. If a person, for example, is weeding, is he chayav because of zerah, because of planting, or is he chayav because of koitza? Which one? It's a trick question, actually, a harder one. If a person's weeding, that he's taking away thorns, a person's chayav because of zerah, not because of koitza. Because you're trying to make the ground grow better. So if a person sees someone weeding on Shabbos, says, "Hey, how can you do that? You're being koitza." Then he's not chayav misa because you've told him the wrong hasra. So the fact is, why is the more ask according to Rabbi Lezer what difference make avot and more just answers? It's just nafkimina what's written in the Torah or not. Tell us a much bigger nafkimina gabe hasra. The Torah indeed says that the Gemara could have answered this, the Gemara didn't answer that. So it comes out lemaisa that there are 2 main nafkiminas regarding av and toda. One is regarding asra, and one is regarding chiyuvei chatos. Nowadays, that we don't make chatos, and there's no asra because meaning that there's no chiyuv basin or misa, it actually makes very, very little nafkimina. As soon as you see sfarim that go in great detail, what's a toda of what, it's hard to get into it because it's not nafkimina lemaisa, it's very little. Okay. Says the Gemara, Azurk amamas bekosa. So imagine somebody standing against this wall and he throws something which is sticky, like a fig, against that wall. And assuming that there's 4 amas from this wall to that wall. Let's say there's, so you throw a sticky fig and it lands on the wall. If it lands higher than 10 tefachim, right, it lands high on the wall, then what happens is, it's as if he threw in the air, he's potter. As we once mentioned in the Rishus Rabbim, the height of the Rishus Rabbim only goes till 10 tefachim. Higher than that is a mokim p'tur. So therefore, if a person stands in the Rishus Rabbim and throws it against the wall, and it hits the wall and it sticks to the wall, then he's not chayav. The reason we're talking about a sticky fruit, because if it's not a sticky fruit, and rather it lands on top of the wall, then what would the din be? No, then you'd be chayav. Because on top of the wall, if it's 10 tefachim high and 4 by 4, then it's a Rishus Hayochid. So therefore, that's why we prefer to buy something sticky where it's against the wall, which is indeed not a mokochi. What do you say, something?
It slides down and
no, it has to stick. That's what if you throw it and it sticks.
It's sticky, but it slides down, so it hits them higher than 10.
No, then you haven't done a proper hanocha. No, it has to stick. We'll see later. That has to stay in place. If a person throws one place, lands lemato ba'asot tefachim. If a person throws and lands, that's tefachim zerg boretz. If a person throws, you're standing on a Rishus Rabbim and you throw something 4 amas, you're chayav. The Gemara says like this: Zog abamas Rishus Rabbim and not under mechayav. Where do we see that throwing, which is one of the main halachas of our Mishnah, that throwing is like carry? You might have said the issa is only to carry. When they donated to the Mishkan, how did they donate? They didn't throw the gold and silver. They went to the houses, opened up the cupboards, took out the nicest piece of gold, carried it and gave it to the collection point for the Mishkan. We don't see any throwing. So where do we see that throwing is us from that term? Not under Mechai, Omar B'Risha. Shkin Oge Yavios, those who weaved these big curtains, Zokin Machten Zelozeh. They would throw the needles to each other. Imagine like all of us are sitting together weaving for the Mishkan. And I say to you, hey, my needle broke. Can you pass me a needle? What would you do? You won't get up and walk over to me to get me a needle. What would you do? You would throw me the needle. Those who are weaving, why would they bother with needles? When you weave, you don't actually use a needle. Needle is used for sewing. Those who sew the yavios, would throw the needles to each other. Rashi is quite puzzling because Rashi says, when would you sew the curtains? So Rashi says, in order to embroider them, in order to make them beautiful, they would sew patterns onto the curtains. Meforshim will ask on Rashi that that's not true. When they came to the curtains of the Mishkan, they never sewed onto it. Rather, they weaved it in a pattern where the actual weaving created it to be beautiful. Those who have read how they made the Mishkan, they never sewed onto it, right? If you've got a fabric, So you can either sew onto the fabric a nice design. Alternatively, you can weave the fabric in a way that the design comes out. Which way did they do it in the Mishkan? Like the way of weaving it in a way that became nice. So how can Rashi say that they sewed onto it a design? And they argue with Rashi, and they say what we mean over here is that they would sew the curtains to each other. Or if there was a hole in the curtain, they would sew it up, but they never actually sewed to embroider the curtains. Okay, but those that sewed the curtains, either according to Rashi to embroider them, or to enhance them according to Rashi, or those who sewed them to make them join together. So then, when they would run out of a needle, they would throw it to each other. How do you know that when they sewed curtains, they would sit far away and throw needles to each other? Maybe they all sat next to each other and nobody had to throw anything, and therefore, how do you know that throwing is forbidden? So it says, and they would stab each other with needles. If you're sewing, the last thing I want to be is right next to you. So therefore, obviously, they made sure to keep apart, and then when they run out of a needle, they'll throw it. But who says that you have to sit 4 amas away? Just that I'm scared that you might stab me with your needle, I would still keep away, but I don't have to sit 4 amas away. I can sit 1 amma away. When they would weave, if you remember, we discussed this so many times, the way to weave is you've got a huge loom, and what happens is you have threads going up, threads going down, and you throw a shuttle, it's called, or something like that, across. And the thread is released as it goes along, and then you push one lever down, one lever up, and then the threads come up, and then you throw it back. So they used to do a lot of throwing when they would weave.
They're scared to sit next to each other.
Yes.
Not to poke each other, but they're happy to throw needles at each other.
Okay, when you're sewing, you press hard, you do it with all your energy. When you throw, you toss it. Yeah. Okay.
You know,
No, because no, the shuttle they would actually throw. The shuttle they would throw. When you weave, how do you weave? You throw it across. You don't pass it across. It's a massive cloth. You have to throw it across, and then it gets to the other end. But
It's not wrong with shus though.
and Elina's asking, how would they even throw needles if they were scared of being stabbed? I hear the question. I mean, it's a technical question. I hear. I'm not sure.
in a box.
It seems that that's what they did. What do you say, Shah?
Are they not throwing in one rishus? From where do we know that you're throwing from one rishus to another?
No, they were in the Rishus Rabbim making curtains, and they were throwing to each other. We're just trying to establish that we just said in our mission that throwing is chayav. Where do we see that anybody ever threw? Maybe they carried. Who says they threw? So the Gemara first suggested through needles, the Gemara pushes that away. Now the Gemara says that they threw the shuttle across the looms. Across when they would weave, they would throw the shuttle back and forth. When you throw the shuttle, the thread is always held on, meaning that the thread is slowly loosening. So the shuttle is always being attached to the thread, which is slowly coming out of it, which means that you're still holding on to it. And that's indeed not chayav on Shabbos. If you throw a yo-yo, and you've got the string of the yo-yo in your hand, on your finger, and the yo-yo goes 4 amas, you're not chayav, because you actually haven't thrown it away from yourself. You've still got shlita, you can still pull it back. So throwing the shuttle across the weaving process was not chayav. Right. Right, but if it's 4 amas and so Shus Rabbim, you'd be chayav. Yeah, because it lands. It would land. It would stop eventually. You would throw it. It would stop. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Moving is also considered an akir. That's also called an akir. Moving is also considered. So we ask the kasha that this shuttle, when you throw it back and forth, you still got the threads. You know, actually, it's like a yo-yo where you've got the threads. What says the last throw, if you think about it, the last time they threw the shuttle, and the last thread, the thread would come out because it would be the end of the thread, and the shuttle would keep on throwing. So therefore, that last throw was a throw of 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah. Yes, if you've got the shuttle, it's got a thread slowly coming out. But when you finish the weaving process, you threw the last throw. That was the last. You'd be okay. You wouldn't be over a device if you're still on yet. You wouldn't be over a device anyway. Why not? Because within the loom, it's not Rosh Hashanah. The Rishus Rabbim is a place where people can easily walk through. This is not a Rishus Rabbim. This is an enclosed area which a person can barely get through. That's not called Rishus Rabbim. What would happen is, let's say I was weaving and my shuttle got broken or something. So I'd say to you, can you pass me your shuttle? So you'd throw me the shuttle. So here we have a case of throwing the shusram. Maybe they sat next to each other and it wasn't necessary to throw anything to each other. They would hit each other with the hem of the cloak, of the curtains. You're trying to make a big cloth, like massive curtains. You're not going to sit next to each other, because you sit next to each other when I'm trying to stretch the curtains, I'll bang into you. Maybe they sat staggered in a way that there was no full amas, but they wouldn't bang into each other. Did they actually borrow anything from each other? From their work. People were busy with their own job. They never got busy with somebody else's job. Also, how do you know if that's the case that was throwing? But what about passing? That means you're walking through Shasurim, because now you only have throwing. How do you know passing? Well, it says, indeed, we do not have anywhere clearly where they would work throwing or passing in Shasurim. It's a Mesiris from Moshe Rabbeinu. That means we know clearly that they carried from Shasurim to Shasurim where? When they donated from the Mishkan. From logic, we work out that the same halacha applies for Shasurim to Shasurim. We have no Mekoi anywhere that they would throw or pass things in the Shasurim, but we have a Mesiris from Moshe Rabbeinu. That's how they did it. And that people would do that, and therefore one is forbidden to do that on Shabbos. Says the Lord says, Omar Yehuda, Omar Shmo, Mekoshesh. We know that in the second Shabbos Kaisel with the Midbar, there was a person called the Mekoshesh that they gathered wood on Shabbos. So which Aveira did he do by this wood? So we have three different opinions. One opinion was of Yehuda Omar Shmo. His Aveira was that he carried the wood for 4 amas. The Masnita of the Vice says, he cut the wood. Says, he gathered the wood. So we have 3 opinions where he did wrong. Either he cut the wood, or he gathered the wood, or he carried the wood. What difference does it make what the Mekoshesh did that he should be Chayim Misa? What says Lechad Rav? In the olden days, they never used to write things down because they remembered everything off by heart. Every so often, if they found an interesting halacha which they were scared they would forget, they would write it in private. And that was always called Megillah Storm. The Gemara often quotes these things. Megillah Storm is a hidden scroll. So Rav said, I once found a hidden scroll. Because of and this hidden scroll said the following halacha. Isi ben Yehuda Omer, Ovis Malachas Aboim Chosachas. There are 39 Ovis Malachas. The Ein Chav Ala Achas. You only have 1. Maybe more achas v'suloi. You only have 1. Is that true? Well, it's now we learned in our Mishnah. Obviously, melochas aboim chasachas. So 39. Davin abom in honor. Normally, we ask, why do we need to know how many there are? The chiddush is that you have 39 chatois. How can Isi ben Yehuda tell us that there are 39 Ovis Malachas and you have 1? I'm a full Mishnah that says there are 39 Ovis Malachas. And nafkamina is that it's actually possible to be chayav 39 chatois on one Shabbos if one person does all 39. Isi ben Yehuda told us that there are 39 Ovis Malachas, but one of them, one's not chayav Misa or Chatos, but we don't know which one. Again, Rav found a special scroll which told him that there are 39 Ovis Malachas, but for one of them, one is not chayav chiyuv deraisa of Misa, one's not chayav Chatos. One's not chayav the death penalty. Which one of the 39? We don't know. Isi ben Yehuda did not tell us. Now we can understand what they were arguing about the Mekoshesh. The Mekoshesh, what happened to him, he was killed. So if we were to know which one the Mekoshesh did, we could easily work out which one of the 39 you definitely are chayav. That means we know one of the 39 you're not chayav. If you work out which one the Mekoshesh did, then you can know which one is definitely not included in the sofek, they're not chayav. The more explains like this. Rav Yehuda pshit today that somebody who carries his chayav. Masnita pshit today the Torah chayav. That somebody who cuts and does kotzes chayav. Avach ve'akim pshit today the ma'am chayav. Therefore, ma'asava ha miyas le'mesapka. Ma'asava miyas le'mesapka. That means each one was confident that this particular malacha is chayav on Shabbos. So each one established that the Mekoshesh did that particular malacha. Therefore, we actually don't really know. In fact, the Gemara asks us in a few places, which one does Issa ben Yehuda say not chayav? And we don't know. But one thing we do know, according to those that the Mekoshesh was over, let's say, on carrying can't be the one which is not chayav Misa. According to the one who says that the Mekush was
And
chayav
based
for
on kill the
gathering,
suffix.
it was not that the gathering is chayav. So if we know what the Mekush did, then we know which one is definitely chayav. What did he say? I didn't tell what he said.
Sorry, how can based in kill the suffix then? People have
Right.
been
We don't pass like Issy ben Yehuda. According to Issy ben Yehuda, we'd have to wait to find out which one it is, because you're right. According to Issy ben Yehuda, nobody would ever be chayav misa until we know which one it is that you're chayav misa for. So the says like this: Tamu Rabban, Mekoshesh zet tzlafchot. Mekoshesh was tzlafchot. V'chein yoima v'ayu b'dei so b'mitbo. Word b'mitbo. V'yim tzurish v'geima. U'lalan yoima avinu meis b'mitbo. Zegzer shova. Ma lalan tzlafchot afkan tzlafchot. Divi Rabbi Akiva. Only Rabbi Yehuda ben Besei Akiva ben kach u'ben kach at also to this adin. Either way, you're going to get judged in Shemayim. Why? Im kedvorecha. If you're right, Rabbi Akiva, that tzlafchot was Mekoshesh. Ate kistiv ate megalo yisur. The Torah hid it, and you're revealing it. So you've done an avera by telling Lashon about tzlafchot, which the Torah never did. And if it's not true that tzlafchot was the Mekoshesh, ate moitzilaz, and it's a tzaddik, you're saying Lashon about a tzaddik. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Besei said to Rabbi Akiva, either way, you're wrong. It says more tzaddik zayin on the top of the page. Or Rabbi Akiva has a Gzeir Shava, which teaches him that the tzlafchot was the Mekoshesh. Gzeir Shava lo goma. He never knew that Yehuda ben Besei didn't hold this Gzeir Shava. There's a very short thesis. I find it very fascinating thesis. Gzeir Shava lo goma says thesis. If he never knew the Gzeir Shava, Yehuda ben Besei, so we lied to Rabbi Akiva that he didn't know it. That means they knew how many Gzeir Shavas there were in the Torah. And Yehuda ben Besei said to Rabbi Akiva, I can't accept the Gzeir Shava because there'll be one more. They are very fascinating to know what that number is. Because there are many Gzeir Shavas which the Gemara argues back and forth, is there such a Gzeir Shava? Does such a Gzeir Shava exist altogether? But Jesus says that they actually knew a number of how many Gzeir Shavas are in the Torah. Says the Gemara, according to Yehuda ben Besei, that tzlafchot was not the Mekoshesh. What was he? The Gemara says, he was one of the Ma'apilim. So to ask the Kasha, how can you call him a tzaddik? Either way, what's he upset with Rabbi Akiva? What was he upset with Rabbi Akiva? That why do you call him the Mekoshesh that you said you gathered wood? Ma'apilim, what was the Ma'apilim? Ma'apilim is in Parsha Shlach Lecha, next week's Parsha, that they sent out Meraglim, and after the Meraglim, Hashem said you have to stay in the middle for 40 years. And there were some people who refused to wait 40 years. They said, let's just go to Eretz Yisrael anyway. We are confident that Hashem will help us. And they ran up the mountain and the Goyim killed them. Like the Devorim, as they hit the Gedim, they would die themselves. So either it's the Mitzvah explains there's a big difference between the Ma'apilim and Mechal Shabbos. Mechal Shabbos is like Kufr in Hashem, and therefore that's much worse. There's an interesting Balatuim, but the Balatuim works out. Avinu Meis B'Mitbo, he says it's Gematria min Ma'apilim, and it's also Gematria Mekoshesh Hava. The actual Gematria Avinu Meis B'Mitbo comes out the same Gematria as these two things. So Rabbi Machlokas, what exactly tzlafchot was? Was he a Mekoshesh, or was he a Ma'apilim? Says this week's parsha. Vayicha af Hashem bom vayelach. Aaron and Miriam spoke Lashon Hara Moshe Rabbeinu. Melamed, since the pasuk says plural, Vayicha af Hashem bom. Hashem was annoyed with them, plural. Melamed jaf Aaron nitztaveh. Even Aaron got saras because it says bom plural. Divi Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Besei Akiva ben kach uben kach at oslit nesadim. Either way, you're going to be punished. Im kedvorecha. If you're right that Aaron got saras at Kistiv at Megalois, so you reveal it. You hide it, the Torah hides it, you reveal it. It says that Hashem was annoyed with them. I hope in the Zifa Bama that Hashem got angry with them. We never actually made him tzaras. We've got a Bryce that Aaron got tzaras. What's the word by Yifan mean? He turned. He turned from where? Even though Aaron Kohen himself was in pain because of the tzaras, he turned away from his own pain of the tzaras, and he considered the pain of Miriam's tzaras, even though he himself was in tzaras. Just a very brief, I was reading a blog from Mechon Massimum, and when his wife was nifter, she was nifter quite young, so he had bochim sleeping in his house, but one of which they couldn't afford a proper dormitory. And then that night, when he was sitting shiva, his little children were crying because there was a young mother. And he said to them, don't cry loud, because it's not fair to the bochim that they shouldn't be able to sleep properly at night, and they should be tired the next day. You see a power of a tzaddik that is able to turn away from his own complaints and think about others. So Aaron Kohen, this week's parsha, turned away from his own tzaras to worry about Miriam's tzaras. Okay. Omar Mishok, now we have a little bit about tzaras, a tiny bit of agadata. HaChoshet b'kshem. Somebody was choshet, somebody was innocent. Loike begufa, dichsi vein aminu li begoyma. that Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hakadosh said to Moshe Rabbeinu, take Klal Yisrael to Mitzrayim and tell them I'm about to save them, what did Moshe Rabbeinu reply? They might not believe me. The Galia came and could be to any Yisrael. Hakadosh knew the Klal Yisrael would believe. Oh my Lord. So Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu like this: Hey, ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, Klal Yisrael ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. V'ato you Moshe ein sevcha le'ma'amin. You are not a good believer. Hey, ma'aminim dichsev v'yaminam. They believed. B'nei ma'aminim, the sons of people who believe them in Hashem. When Hashem told Avraham Avinu he was going to have children, Avraham Avinu believed. Ato b'yu ein sevcha le'amin. You're not going to believe. Shenem hayane emantam bi. That the hitting of the rock was a certain amount of lack of belief. How do you know that Moshe got punished for being chosh v'shem? One of the signs that Moshe Rabbeinu had to do when Hakadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, prove to Klal Yisrael that I sent you, one of the signs was that he put his hand inside his chest and he took it out and it became full of tzaras. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu deserve that he should get tzaras? The Torah says it was chosh v'shem. He said about Klal Yisrael, they're not going to believe me. So since it was chosh v'shem, he got punished that his hand became tzaras. Good always comes quicker than punishment. Reward comes quicker than punishment. Right? He took out his hand. Only when he took his hand out completely, then it became white like snow. Took it out of his bosom. The word cheiko is spare. You don't need to tell me that. As soon as he took it out of his bosom, immediately it became good. That means, before, while it was still inside his bosom, it already got healed. And Maral says very, very nicely, why does Hakadosh Baruch Hu reward quickly and take his time over punishing? Because Hashem takes his time over punishing, maybe a person will do tshuva. But reward he gives straight away, because maybe by the time the person gets the reward, he won't be deserving of the reward anymore. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu always makes sure to give reward immediately, but punishment he takes his time. That way maybe a person will do tshuva. Well, it says, what more that? This was a miracle within a miracle. What was the miracle within the miracle? That first, the bat of Aaron, which was a snake, turned back into a stick. And when it was back into a stick, then it swallowed them up. And that's why it says, Vayivla mata Aaron. Marshal says, the stick of Aaron. It doesn't say the snake of Aaron. That the stick of Aaron turned into a snake, turned back into a stick, and then swallowed them up. Now we're going back to our Mishnah. The Gemara says like this, going back to Allah. If a person throws from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah with Rosh Hashanah in the middle, right? He's got two balconies, one on each side of Rosh Hashanah, and he throws something across. So we have a Machlekes, Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva. Tanakama says he's potter. Why does Tanakama say one's potter? Anybody remember? Why does Tanakama say a potter if you throw from one balcony across the other?
Throwing it. It's not like it's
Never
standing.
did that in the Mishkan. Nobody ever threw from one to the other. So you never chayav for throwing. Rabbi Akiva says, no, you're chayav. So now the Gemara clears the shayla you asked, how high are these balconies? What are we talking about? Are we talking about lower than 10 tefach, higher than 10 tefach? You pick it up with the Shusayachit, and you throw it. Oh, the more going to ask, what's the svar of Rabbi Akiva as well? Mechetesi, you should be chayav. You haven't done that Akiva. Oh. What's like this? Boy, Rabbi. Are they arguing about a situation where it's lower than 10 tefach? This is machlekes. Rabbi Akiva holds that when something is in the air, it's as if it's rested. When something's caught in the air, it's as if it's rested. So when I stand on one balcony and I'm throwing across the other balcony, as it goes through the air, and it's lower than 10 tefachim, so as it goes through the air, it's as if the ground caught it, and therefore it's as if I did akir and shusayachit. I had noch in the Shusarabim, and then another akir in the Shusarabim, and then a nocha in the Shusayachit. Because so be chayav twice, very good. You'd be chayav twice. You'd be chayav two chatoris according to this. That's a very good point. More says this. Or do we say that's just a But the Tanakhama says we don't say such a logic. In the end of the day, it never rested in the Shusarabim. Since it never rested in the Shusarabim, I never did that akir in the Shusarabim, I never did a nocha in the Shusarabim. So therefore, I'm not chayav. If you throw a hand in 10 tefachim, divakul potter. Everybody agrees you're potter. Why? That in the Mishkan, what did they do? They passed. They never threw. And therefore, everybody agrees that throwing, you're not chayav. So therefore, the only case is, in a case where it's lower than 10 tefachim, where the question is, if you're chayav because of Klutuk Rishoncha. Or you don't know, maybe, the Malamasa Pligi. This is the Machlekes of all Pligi. The Masa V'Afna Zerkim Moishet. Just like when they passed the Nevim from one wagon to another. They passed higher than 10 tefachim. so too when you throw, you're chayav. That's just a Akiva. Ma'aseh v'rafnu zerek v'moishit. We don't learn one from the other. Aval ma'ata ma'aseh, but lo natan tvachim, divakol chayav ma'atam eklutuk mishon chadani. We have a shaila within a shaila. That means you've got machlikus Akiva and Chachamim regarding throwing from Mishusayachid to Shusayachid to Shusayachid in the middle, if you're chayav or potter. In that machlikus, we have a shaila. Are they arguing above 10 tvachim? And we're learning zerek v'moishit, but lo natan tvachim, everybody agrees to chayav. Or are we talking about lo natan tvachim? Behind natan tvachim, everybody agrees with potter. Omar Rav Yosef, Hamilse Bili Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda actually had this exact shaila. The posture of Rav Nuna Meho. Rav Nuna proved it from this following brayso. The brayso is like this: the brayso is discussing a case where something goes in the Rishus Rabim from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Hayachid through Rishus Rabim. And the more explains. Since the brayso talks about through Rishus Rabim, Pshita lemata ma'asor, we must be talking about lower than asor. Because as we've said many times, something which is higher than 10 tvachim is never considered having gone through Rishus Rabim. There is no such thing as going higher than 10 tvachim in Rishus Rabim, because Rishus Rabim only reaches the height of 10 tvachim. So of course we're talking about what are we talking about? If we're talking about where he's walking, he's not chayav. If we're talking about just simply walking in the Rishus Rabim, from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Rabim, and then from Rishus Rabim to Rishus Hayachid, if that's what we're talking about, are you okay? If we're, no, I thought you were getting wet. Sorry, no. Sorry, I just looked uncomfortable. If we're talking about walking from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Rabim to Rishus Hayachid, then we talked about this previously, that when Kahos carried, they used to carry above 10 tvachim, and therefore, even though if you throw above 10 tvachim, you're potter. But if you go outside in the Rishus Rabim and carry it with your hand, holding it up more than 10 tvachim, and you walk along, then you're chayav, because that is what Bnei Kahos did. So therefore, obviously, we're not talking about carrying, because in carrying, everybody agrees to chayav. We must be talking about throwing. The brayso is to lower than 10 tvachim, and that's the machlokes of Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. And above 10 tvachim, everybody agrees with potter. So, Rav Nuna tells us, that means again, let's go briefly. We have a shaila of Rava, or we talk about below 10 or above 10. Comes along with Rav Nuna and says, I can tell you that we're talking about below 10. What's my proof? My proof is from the fact that we have a brayso which talks about going through Rishus Rabim, and going through Rishus Rabim is obviously less than 10 tvachim, because higher than 10 tvachim is not Rishus Rabim. And it brings a machlokes of Akiva and the Chachamim, and they can only be talking about throwing, because if you're carrying, everybody agrees to chayav. Says the Gemara, Upliga to Abelazar. This of Rav Nuna is arguing Abelazar. He holds that Akiva says you're chayav even higher than 10. That is only to tell us that the Chachamim hold that even lower than 10 you're potter. According to Abelazar, Rabbi Akiva says you're chayav not just below 10, also above 10. That means that Abelazar previously is arguing on Rav Chilkiah. Why? Less than 3 tvachim divakol chayav. Everybody agrees you're chayav. Why does everybody agree lower than 3 you're chayav? Why is lower than 3 everybody agree you're chayav? We have a principle called Lovut. Anything less than 3, when I was in Pirchim 30 years ago, what we used to talk about, I never did it, I mean, we always talked about doing it. If you ever want to make a very, very cheap sukkah, do it very, very quickly and don't get off the point. But if you want to make a very cheap sukkah, what do? You take 4 poles, take a ball of string, and go round and round, making sure that there's less than 3 tvachim gap between each string, and then you've got lovud. Lovud is as if it's closed. Less than 3 tvachim is closed. So if you, right, you ever talked about this as children, how to make a sukkah the cheapest way? And actually there's about 1,000 shilas about it, because there's many different problems. But it's a sweet thing to do. Take a ball of 4 sticks and put a ball of string around, you've got a sukkah. The Maisa, lovud means less than 3 tvachim is connected. So the Gemara is like this: less than 3 tvachim, if you throw it, everybody agrees yechad, because that's considered on the ground. So if I stand and I throw out, let's say, a letterbox from one Rishus Hayachid to another Rishus Hayachid, and it's lower than 3 tvachim, everybody agrees yechad. למעלה מעשור דיבקל פוטר. בשלושה ועד עשור בונו מחליק סו וקיבה בונו נס מחליק סו וקיבה נחכמים. תניא נמי אוכי בסך שלושה within 3 דיבקל חי. למעלה מעשור איננו משום שבוס, תנו דו הבונם. ומאישור שלו מותר. We'll come to that in 1 second. If it's yours, it's mutter. וקיבה ועד עשור וקיבה מחייב וחכמים פויטרים. So therefore like this. Lemaisa. We have machlik so bekivan chachamim if a person throws from shesayachit to shesayachit through shesayachim if it's chayav a potter. Kiva says chayav, chacham say a potter. We lemaisa paskin like chachamim anyway. The shayla is only when did Kiva say a chayav. We have one opinion shittas of Nuna is that they're arguing only less than 10 tefachim, and so does Rabbi Loza say. We have another machlik. Sorry, so does Rav Chilkiah say. But Rabbi Loza says that not. Rabbi Loza says that even higher than 10 tefachim they're arguing. And according to Rabbi Loza, Rabbi Kiva holds the chayav whether you throw from shesayachit to shesayachit higher than 10 tefachim or lower than 10 tefachim. Now, it says if it's yours, it is mutter. The halacha is you're allowed to carry from more shesayachit to your shesayachit as long as you don't go through shesayachit. So if you own 2 properties across, now in the case, what's the issue of carrying from this garden to that garden on Shabbos, assuming there's no evil? Now, it's fine, because Meshusayachit to Shusayachit is okay. The Chachamim came along and said that you're not allowed to carry from a private domain to somebody else's private domain, from one Meshusayachit to another Shusayachit, in case you come to carry from Shusayachit to Shusayachit. But if, let's say, you own both houses, however it should happen, then what happens is that you're allowed to carry from this garden to the next garden, because even though both are Shusayachit, it's mutter. So the Gemara says like this: if you were to have both houses, and it would be a shusarabim in between, and you make sure to throw it higher than 10 tefachim, then you're allowed to do it lechatchila. There's no even issa to Rabbanon. Can you imagine such a thing? That means if you own a house on one side they have 62, and you own another house on the other side they have 62, and they both belong to you, and you throw it, and you make sure that it never goes lower than 10 tefachim, you're allowed to lechatchila do it on Shabbos. If you run out of food in one house, you want to get yourself food in another house, it's a way of passing things on. No, they never asked it. No, because they only forbade from this garden to that garden is also because of you might come to carry to Shusarabim. But if those both belong to you, you're allowed to carry from your front room to your back room.
It's exert on yourself, not for other people.
Yeah, it seems that they said it's mutter. Says the Gemara, mutter. If they're yours, mutter, then have to do it. Bottom states to Shusarabim. 2 houses on 2 sides of Shusarabim. Not allowed to. Says the Machrekas. And Rav said it's also, and this price says it's mutter, so it's a stira. It's a kash on Rav. We're talking about where they're not the same height. There, Rav says it's awesome, that's how we pass them. Now, if it's not the same height, it is awesome. And it's interesting. Why, if it's not the same height, is it awesome? So Rashi says, don't tell me the reason if it's not the same height, it is awesome. Because if you try and throw across a motorway, and it's not the same height, the 2 balconies, there's a good chance it will fall in the Shusarabim. Why don't tell me that's the reason why it's awesome? Because if you're trying to throw it to a Shusayachit and it falls in the Shusarabim, you've not done an Aveira because that's called Misasek. That's like trying to pull an apple which is not growing off, let's say an apple off the table, and by mistake you pull an apple off a tree. You're not doing an Aveira, you are trying to eat a normal apple, or like we'll see later, you're trying to throw something to one room and it lands in a different place altogether. You're not chayav because you're Misasek. So don't tell me the reason why 2 houses which are on a different height is forbidden is because you'll end up dropping it to the Shusarabim. Rather, the problem is like this, that what will happen is you will see that it's different heights and you'll find it stressful to throw. So you'll see one Shabbos you'll throw, the next Shabbos you'll be stressed about it, you'll come and pick it up, walk across the motorway and put it down. And that's why it's forbidden. It's interesting Rashi. Rashi says like this, that once it's a different height, you may then come to actually carry. Not that you'll drop it in Shazam, because dropping in Shazam won't be also. But rather, you may come to actually carry it. Where do Chazal get it? Where did they see that less than 3 Tvachim is loved? Meaning that less than 3 Tvachim is considered closed. There's no such thing as a Shusarabim, which is 100% smooth. We once talked about this. If you've got a paving stone, which is a tiny bit jutting out, it's still a Shusarabim. If it's 3 Tvachim high, it's not a Shusarabim. Why? Because people don't go on a stone which is 3 Tvachim high. Well, maybe if it's a paving stone which is a bit jutting out also not. The answer is no. There's no such thing as a Shusarabim that should be 100% like marble smoothness. And therefore, the fact is it's still called a Shusarabim. So you see that less than 3 Tvachim we ignore. So more Yachi Shleisha Nami. Even 3 Tvachim, he says that sometimes people ignore. The Su, it's Nan, Mshashat, Fanis Ben Mala Namato. Person wants to build a sukkah, and he makes the walls of the sukkah high. But at the bottom of the walls of the sukkah, there's a 3 gap in Tvachim gap. If there's less than 3 Tvachim between the wall and the floor, it's okay. Higher than 3 Tvachim, it's no good. So the kasha is there. You can't say because of the same logic that you can't make the floor smooth. Because for a sukkah, you can't make the floor smooth. You can make that the walls of the sukkah should actually touch the ground. So why over there do we say lavod as if it's all closed off? We should say it's not. Well, it says there it's a different problem. There the problem is that if there's a place which is a 3 Tvachim gap, goats will get in. Since goats will get in, it's not considered a proper wall. If it's not considered a proper wall, then it's not considered a wall for a sukkah. And that's the problem, not because of that, not because of lavod. Now the halacha is that if a person puts the schach 3 Tvachim away from the walls, it is possible. And what's the problem there? There you can't say that goats will get in because we're talking about the top of the sukkah, so therefore there's no way that goats can get in. And the more takes it back. This whole idea of lavod has nothing to do with the fact that the floor can't be straight. It's simply halacha l'Moshe Sinai that anything less than 3 Tvachim is considered closed. And therefore, again, let's get it clear. So if a person's walking in Shusarabim and it's less than 3 Tvachim bumps, then it's considered part of Shusarabim. If a person's got a wall in the sukkah which is less than 3 Tvachim gap, it's okay. If it's more than 3 Tvachim gap, then it's no good. It's considered that the wall is separate from the schach, and that's no good. And according to everybody, if you throw something in the Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaYachid through Rishus HaRabim, and it goes lower than 3 Tvachim, according to everybody, you're chayav. Why? Because since it's within 3 Tvachim of the floor, it's considered to be part of the floor. It's like rolling something on the floor, as you said before, If you roll something across the Rishus HaRabim, of course you're chayav. So if you throw something across the Rishus HaRabim lower than 3 Tvachim, you're chayav, because it's considered to be part of the ground. I'm just trying to see that we're going to have to stop here because it's a new sugya. I don't want to start a new sugya now. So we're up to Tonu Rabbanon, Sadik Zayin on Mudala, 5 lines from the bottom. It's a new sugya. Oh, let me just. Any questions?
Sure.
Any questions?
Yeah. Why in the Mishkan you were saying the Gemara was trying to prove that from the people when they threw the loom band like across to weave. So if they did that in the Mishkan, then why isn't throwing the yo-yo also? Even though you hold it on the other end.
No, because the Gemara Maskana says that you're not chayv. The Gemara says only we learn it from a special halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But they were not chayv because of that. It's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But indeed, the Gemara says you're not chayv.
But they still did that. I'm saying they still did that in the Mishkan.
They did a lot of things in the Mishkan which they weren't chayv for. Not everything they did they were chayv for. Only if we knew that it was a malacha, you're chayv. Yeah? Okay.